Canada falters at Worlds, Cowan shines in Saginaw, and Domi's expecting how much money this offseason? We'll get into all of that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Welcome into today's Monday episode. Hope everybody had a really solid weekend. To our friends down south, happy, it's a President's Day weekend down there,
Memorial Day?
right? Memorial Day? Is that the same thing? So I apologize for my ignorance. It's one of those two. I think Memorial Day, you're right. I think President's Day is in like February or something. But regardless, happy long weekend for whatever holiday is being celebrated to our friends down south. We got a lot to get into today, so let's start things off with the most Leaf-centric topic here, Dave, because, as I typically do over the weekend, I, go on The Athletic, I peruse my phone, go and see, all right, what's being written about the Maple Leafs, what are the insiders saying, listen to the various podcasts, and pick up on all the latest news and information. And Pierre LeBrun wrote in The Athletic in his rumblings piece, some musings, I guess, about what could be happening with some of the key unrestricted free agents around the league. And he had a little nugget on both Leafs pending UFAs, Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi. To no shock that there's mutual interest in both parties to, somehow hammer out some sort of extension to keep these guys here long term. But I got to tell you, when I was reading the little excerpt from Pierre LeBrun, and he mentioned that it might take somewhere between $5 and $6 million on a 5 or 6 year deal to get it done with Max Domi, my jaw dropped to the floor. That's not the type of money we're talking for Max Domi, is it?
It better not be.
Dude.
We were having this conversation in the Discord about how it just seems like if you're a player and you want to get your best value ever on your next contract, take a 1 year deal with the Leafs, because it usually, in most cases, can bankroll you into a nicer deal the second time around.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like, and the conversation was like, that's got to eventually like come to an end at some point, right? Like, it's good that some players are motivated to want to play their best with the Leafs to get that next contract. But at the same time, like, you talk about Domi and Bertuzzi. I mean, Domi in particular, this guy has been bouncing around from team to team to team. He's talked about his desire to be in Toronto and look at this to be maybe a place he wants to stay for a few years. That was when he had first signed in Toronto last year.
Yeah.
And then, okay, I like Pierre LeBrun's not throwing those numbers out without any sort of inkling from somebody that
those are credible numbers. Like that's not just being
he's
thrown
talking
out
to the
there.
agents.
That's exactly like that. That's the number that Max is hoping to get, like somewhere between 5 and 6 mil a year, or on a 5 or 6 year deal. That's what the agent is hoping that the Maple Leafs can, come to agreement on. But how can you really? I don't know, man. Like Max Domi, yes, he was a good player, and I thought that he meshed really well once he kind of got going with the team, and he's a playmaker. But ultimately, like Dave, the guy scored 9 goals and was a non-factor at special teams. Like, I don't think you could pay a guy 6 times, or 5 times 5 or 5 times 6, whatever it may be. Can't pay him $25-30 million to just be a 5-on-5 darling that doesn't really give you much special teams effort. And even at that, he's good, but like he's a second liner. It's not like the guy's a top line stud here. I can't fathom a world where Max Domi, a guy who's get you 50 points, 55 maybe, is worth 5-6 million on a long term deal. 1 year prove it deal, maybe short term deal, perhaps. But like for me, I'm thinking if he wants term, he's gotta bring that AAV down. Like if he wants 5 or 6 million, I'm looking at like 4 or 5 or 6 years. I'm looking at like 3.75, 4 million, something in that range. Or perhaps if you want to go a little shorter, you can go 4 times 4.25, 3 times 4.25. Like that's where you start to make a little bit more money, I suppose. But I can't see a way where I can see myself justifying Max Domi getting paid in the realm of 5 years at $5+ million per. I don't think that would be a good value contract and a good allocation of cap space for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I just don't see how they're going to be able to spin that positively. And unfortunately, that's going to make Domi like basically what Marner's become. He's never going to live up to the contract, and the hometown kid's going to get booed every time he steps onto the ice. I I don't know, man. I don't think it's a good idea for him or the team.
No, I don't think so either. I've been trying to figure out what exactly would justify those numbers because you're also looking at comparables. Like even like Tyler Bertuzzi took a 1 year, $5.5 million deal, but I would have signed. No one was shaking their head at that deal when it was signed because Bertuzzi had a track record of being able to put up, especially production in the playoffs. Max Domi was a wild card. We didn't really know. Like, yeah, he had a half decent year before coming to the Leafs. But this is again a guy that hasn't had consistency throughout his career.
Yeah.
He hasn't scored. Like you look at his production over the years. Yeah, he had 20 goals 2 years ago, but it's been single digits or like he hasn't been over 20 goals like consistently. Like to me, if you're getting $5 to $6 million, I know for a fact I'm getting that 20 to 25 goal score, can do other things, as you said, play special teams, be a factor in other areas, and knowing exactly what his role is going to be. I don't even know what Max Domi's role would be specifically. Like if you're signing it to him that sort of deal, he better be top line winger.
The,
at that,
the,
at
the
that deal.
only way you can even do this, not even saying that it makes sense for them to do it, but like I don't see a world in which Mitch Marner's on this team and they're paying Domi 5-6 million and they're paying Nylander 11 whatever he's making. Like I don't see a world. The only way I think you get Domi to that number to even make the cap work is by moving out Marner. Then I guess that opens up a top 6 spot on the wing for Max Domi, and that's their way to try and justify it. He's a top 6 playmaking winger who has flexibility to play down the middle if need be. Like that's how they're going to try and sell it. Also, dude with edge, probably would be much appreciated by the incoming coach, who we know likes to play on the edge a little bit. But man, it's going to be a tough contract to live up to if this ends up being the case. Again, there's all reports, there's all speculation. You don't actually know. Like last year, Tyler Bertuzzi was expected to sign a deal, 6x6 in that range, and come July 1, it wasn't there, and he was forced to sign a 1-year prove it deal with the Maple Leafs. Now the problem, well, not the problem, but the difference between last year and this year is we finally have the biggest cap increase since pre-COVID. So there's a lot more money available this offseason, and a big reason why you saw the Bertuzzis and the Domies and the guys who took the 1-2 year deals last year was to cash in this season. That was the point of doing the short-term deal last year. So I get it from their perspective. Of course, they're going to want, the security of a 5-6 year deal. Of course, they're going to want as much money as possible. But I just the production isn't there for me. For Bertuzzi, I could probably get behind that deal on Bert, to be honest. But for Domi, I don't know if I can get by. I can't get there myself. I really, really can't.
No, I can't. And look, again, this may be a situation where the Leafs have decided between one or the other. Even like
Yeah,
when you really look at what their priorities are in the offseason, the blue line needs a lot of work. Goaltending is going to need work. You need to maximize your cap space. You can't, even if you make a move with one of the core guys coming out, it's not like you're going to erase like a Mitch Marner his entire cap hit. I think what
right.
people need to realize, you're not gaining 10.9 in cap space. You're going to have to be taking back salary in any sort of deal. And then if you're looking to add, you're going to have to find ways to make the money kind of work in different areas. You can't just be, okay, trade Marner. Now we can give Domi whatever he's looking for. Be
Right.
so irresponsible. You'd be doing yourself a disservice considering there's a lot better ways to use the cap money.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, it's going to be interesting how these guys decide to allocate those cap dollars. It's a very, very interesting offseason for Toronto. And obviously, like, these are the two big names free agent wise that everyone's kind of got circled as to, okay, what's going to happen with them. They're obviously the biggest UFAs that they have. Then you can get to the Tavarises, the Marners, and whatnot after that. But those two in particular, Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi, are going to be interesting. We know there's interest on both sides, as Pierre LeBrun reported, but I got to tell you, at those figures that he also reported, eh, don't love him. Don't love him. But we'll see if any more information kind of comes out between, see if these two sides start talking, hammering out any more deals. We're starting to see some trades, some additional trades kind of come out. It was that draft pick trade over the weekend that we saw. So, teams are starting to move on and they're starting to get some business done over the weekend, and I'm sure the coming weeks here. All right, let's take a break. Let's come back. Let's get into Canada falling at the World Hockey Championships. John Tavares captains another team. Well, not to championships, but to nothing. They left without any type of medal. The John Tavares way. We'll get to that and more on the other side. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back into the Locked On at Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti here with you. We're a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast. We go all the way through the postseason and all the way through the offseason. So if you want to be paying attention to what's going on with the Maple Leafs all year round, 365, the Locked On Leafs podcast is your place for that. You can find us wherever you get your podcast from, also on YouTube as well. We are uploading new episodes 5 days a week, still Monday through Friday. So go ahead and subscribe if you want that content, that daily dose of Maple Leafs content. Speaking of Maple Leaf, not the Maple Leafs, but the Maple Leaf, the Canadian national team falling at the World Hockey Championships. A disappointing fourth place finish for Team Canada. They fall 3-2 to Sweden in the bronze medal game. And Dave, just as we predicted, goaltending was the demise.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember why I was just thinking back to the Switzerland game to see the Leafs get goal. Leafs felt like you were watching the Leafs getting goalied by Switzerland.
Giannoni? The guy Giannoni?
Like, that guy should be looking to get an NHL job.
So it's funny you mentioned that because, like, this always happens. You always see one of these European no-name goalies go off. And I remember, like, Kristaps Godlewski's ended up getting an NHL job out of that. I think he was for the Olympic team years ago. I think that was back in Sochi. But anyways, so I actually looked up Giannoni to see, like, okay, how old is he? Like, could he The dude's 36 years old. Like, he's been playing men's league Swiss hockey his entire life. Like, this guy is just like Swiss hockey royalty. He ain't going nowhere. He's 36 years old. He's already entrenched in hockey lore in Switzerland. He's sticking around. But I do think that yeah, he was outstanding. Are you frozen? Yeah, you're frozen. David's frozen. Let's see if he gets back here because I'm just looking at his screen. He's frozen, but we'll see if he gets back. I'll kind of go through what's going on for Team Canada. So they lost to Sweden 3-2 today. Yeah, he just texted me. He'll be back in a minute, so I'll try and power through, and then hopefully David can rejoin us. But Canada won 3-2 against, or they lost, sorry, 3-2 to Sweden. And the reason why I say goaltending was the demise is because it was a goaltending error that cost them the game ultimately. I mean, this was a team. Yep, there goes Dave dropping out. He'll be back in a sec. This was a team that was leading, and then they ended up tying the game. And then all of a sudden, a turnover from the goaltender and gives it right to Grundstrom. Binnington swats a puck into the boards, gives it right to Grundstrom. That's a familiar name, by the way, former Maple Leafs prospect. And he just hammers it on net, and Binnington whiffs at it, wasn't really expecting it. And that stood as the game winner. That was 3-2. I think Grundstrom had 2 goals in the game, actually. Again, would have been nice for him to do that when he was with the Maple Leafs, but it is what it is. As he was kind of traded before he really became an bona fide NHLer, I suppose. Maybe that's a little unfair. But still, really disappointing for Canada to, leave without even a medal after going undefeated up until that point, up until the semifinals, undefeated all the way through round robin. And then you go, I guess, 2-1? Yeah, or 1-2 rather. Then they go 1-2 in the playoff. Very disappointing outcome.
It is disappointing. Like, they went on a streak where they hadn't lost. Like, they've been in the gold medal game. What was it? How many years in a row was it? Like, it was like a good streak. It was Canada and the U.S. had probably the more disappointing tournaments, considering the
U.S. for sure. I mean, getting kicked out in the quarters, that's a kick in the pills,
right? Sweden, like that's supposed to be their tournament, right? Like, that's the one that they always thrive in. So I guess for them being being in the bronze, yeah, it's good that they get a medal out of it, but it's not what they
right.
kind of hoped for, right? So yeah, so disappointing for Canada because it also opens up like the conversation, as we said, about goaltending and like going forward, the Olympics, when you're going back to the Olympics.
Yeah, but I don't know. Binnington did a service for himself here. I think he did a disservice for his game here at the Olympics. It was unfortunate. He had a really, really good season. If you go and look, I think it's from like January 1st, like the new year onward, they look at goals saved above expectation. Binnington was either at like number 1, maybe number 2, but he was, right up there at the top of the league in terms of, goals saved above expectation. So he was unbelievable for St. Louis throughout the season, but did not have a very good showing for Canada at the World Championships. And
he'll have a better defense in front of him. I'll give him that. Like, he's not going to have.
But I mean, he was also. I mean, look at who was shooting on him, Carl Grundstrom. It's not like he had, like Austin Matthews shooting on him. You know what I mean? So the defense that he had was good enough considering who they were playing for most of the part. You know what I mean? Like Pontus Holmberg is a top 6 player for Sweden. You know what I mean? Like that. So it kind of washes each other out, I guess, is kind of what I'm getting at for that. But yeah, the goaltending in Canada remains a big black hole, and it's a big reason why they leave Europe without a medal.
Quick question for you though.
Yeah,
it's the Olympics. Who would be your number? Who is the guy that's touted to be your number 1?
Well, it would have been Binnington. Like, that's the thing. It would have been Binnington. Gosh, like Aiden Hill. Like, is Aiden Hill really Canada's best goaltender? Like, is he actually Canada's best goalie right now? Aiden Hill. If not Aiden Hill, like, Connor Ingram, like that's a name that's completely out of there. But Connor Ingram's a good player, and Connor Ingram, when he had a chance in Phoenix this year, or Arizona, whatever the hell, the Utah now, he put up some decent numbers. But yeah, for me, like Binnington was the front runner. I guess Aiden Hill's kind of the next guy. Is Marc-Andre Fleury still going to kick around for the playoffs? I don't know.
I doubt it. My one kind of dark horse candidate, I'm hoping the Sabres don't screw up his development, but maybe Devin Levi.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good name. That's a good name to keep an eye on.
Get him out of Buffalo so he has a chance.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see. Oh, UPL's had a pretty good back half of the year, so hopefully those two. Well, not hopefully when they're playing Toronto, although they probably will look like a vintage Dominic Hasek when they play Toronto as per usual. But I think those two will be a pretty good tandem for Buffalo going into next season. Dylan Cousins had a great tournament for Canada, despite coming home empty-handed. Like he was probably my biggest, I wouldn't say surprise, but the guy who I thought rose his stock the most from when he got there to when he left. Like now. Cousins, people are okay. This guy should now be able to take a step and carry this over into next season for Buffalo because he was supposed to take that step this year. He took it last year and then he kind of regressed, and the team kind of followed suit. The rest of them did as well. So he's supposed to be one of their top players. And when he regressed, the rest of the team kind of went with it. So I think if he can carry this forward, geez, I mean, if you're the Maple Leafs, again, that's the Atlantic Division continuing to get better and better, and the Maple Leafs kind of staying in a very even-keeled, wishy-washy kind of state. But anyways, so Canada, 4th place, Sweden, which means Holmberg wins a bronze. Switzerland wins silver, and David Kampf and Czechia rather, ends up winning gold with a 2-0 win over Switzerland. So David Kampf at least is an Olympian. Keep saying that. He's a gold medalist. Yeah. David Kampf is a gold medalist. So he can bring that medal back to Toronto and tell everyone, hey, eat it. I'm a gold medalist. No one else can say that for Canada or US or whoever on the Maple Leaf squad. All right, let's take one more break. Let's come back. Let's get into a little bit of playoff roundup. Dave, we've had few games now, I guess. Couple in the East, one in the West. Since we last had our podcast, so we can kind of tee things up at where things stand in the playoffs right now. It's way different than it was when we last spoke Friday morning to the way things sit today, late Sunday night. So we'll update you what's going on in the playoffs on both sides of the bracket. That's coming up next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues with Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. 4 teams remaining in the NHL, and we've got both series now underway. The Dallas Stars have rallied back to, well, they didn't rally back. They won their game to tie the series Saturday night. So that series all tied up at 1s, and they'll go tonight, I suppose, as that series shifts out to Edmonton now. As for the Eastern Conference, the New York Rangers, they did rally back to beat the Florida Panthers in overtime to take a 2-1 series lead. So they took the first game in Florida after a split in New York, and Alexander Venberg with the overtime winner. And the Rangers now with a 2-1 lead, just 2 wins away from a Stanley Cup Finals berth. Which one you want to start with here? We might as well start with the Rangers, I guess, since we're on it. Are you believing in the Rangers now? Like what was going through your mind when you saw the Rangers kind of pull this out after it looked like Florida early on was kind of maybe going to be a little bit too overwhelming with their physicality?
Well, game 3, like the Rangers, they got down early, but then they quickly jumped on the Panthers. They took the 4-2 lead, and the Panthers stormed back, and it was like, oh, no. Like, the Panthers were rolling when they were down, but give full credit to Alex Lafreniere. That dude has been buzzing for the Rangers, especially like the goals he scored, toe drag on one, nifty backhand on another. Barclay Goodrow, what a series he's been having so far for the Rangers. Like that's what I think is killer for the Panthers is that look who's beating them. It's not Kreider, it's not Panarin, it's not Zibanejad, he's not even Adam Fox. It's the depth that this Rangers team has that makes me go, ugh, Florida's in real trouble here.
Yeah, but like Laffy's arrived. Like I think Laffy's like
true.
pretty much put himself into that conversation now of one of the top offensive producers on the New York Rangers. Like to call him depth at this point is almost disrespectful, I think, to Lafreniere. I mean, he woke up this season. He had 28 goals this year. I think a lot of people forget, or a lot of people didn't realize that he had 28 goals in the regular season. And he's now up to what, 6-7 goals here in the playoffs. So like this guy's really starting to come into his game. He's starting to look like the part of the number 1 overall draft pick, the superstar that he was drafted to be. And the Rangers, man, are they ever happy that this thing that he woke up here in this season, and especially here in the series here in Game 3 with a couple of big time goals. But it's not just like the way that he's scoring and his offensive production, like the way that he's playing with an edge, playing with physicality. Like he's almost playing like a power forward right now. Like it's really something to see. And I think that's a big reason for why the Rangers right now should feel really confident. Because like you just said, the Kreiders, the Panarins, the Zaben, like those guys aren't scoring right now. Trocheck, like those guys aren't getting the goals. Eventually those guys are going to start scoring. Like they're really, really good players. And when that happens, boy, oh boy, like this team, man, like they're super, super deep. So I think I like the Rangers. I've right from the get-go, Dallas, New York was my cup final. And I got to tell you, coming out of the weekend, I still feel really good about that pick, Dave. I still feel good about it.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to shift to the Stars Oilers series, like I've been so impressed with Dallas. Like, look, the Oilers have put up a good fight. They've done, they've really tightened things up defensively. But you're also seeing where Edmonton has really struggled, and is that they're not getting the power plays that they usually get. Like I don't, and I get it. They're expecting consistency, but it's the Stanley Cup playoffs. If you're expecting things to be called like in the regular season, like where have you been all these years? And just like I know they don't want to talk about the lack of penalties, but the fact they are talking about it, it never helps anyone's case. And it just kind of proves, it kind of proves to me where Edmonton's failed the last how many years. These series are not, special teams play a big factor. But you need to win the 5-on-5 game.
1000%. And go look at their first couple of series wins against LA and against Vancouver. They crushed the special teams, crushed them. They killed off all their penalties and they scored on the power play. That's how they beat LA. That's how they had the number 1 penalty kill and number 1 power play through the first 2 series. So you look at that and it's like, okay, makes sense. But then all of a sudden you get to the Western Final and the whistles start to go away and they let you play some big boy hockey and you're not getting the calls. You're getting those clutches and grabs. You're getting less space out there. And all of a sudden, when it's 5-on-5 and they're right on you, and Dallas is such a puck hungry team. They're all over you like white on rice. The second you enter the zone, they're so smothering. And I mean, Edmonton's having a really tough time just even breaking into the zone. So I think Dallas. I mean, Ottinger too is unbelievable.
Oh,
Like
he's been unreal.
Monster saves, just some
best,
like
out of the 4 goalies, he's the best, one of the best.
Yeah, so far for sure. He's my MVP pick, so that's looking good so far. We'll see what happens the rest of the way. They've got game number 3 tonight, so we'll see who ends up taking the edge in the series. As I said, it shifts back up to Edmonton. You got a quick prediction? You think Dallas takes the lead, or you think Edmonton kind of recovers here on home ice in front of their home fans?
I think Dallas is going to take the pressure is shifting to the Oilers
Mm.
here. Like Dallas, yeah, they split it. You obviously want to win both your home games. At the same time, they got a little bit more momentum. I think Edmonton's mindset is in the wrong spot here. They got to worry about trying to beat Ottinger. He's been so good. And if you're Dallas, I look at like guys like Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, and like those guys are carrying it a little bit too. They're that lineup is so deep, it's ridiculous.
It's crazy. Like it's at the forward group, the blue line. Like yeah, Ryan Suter playing 18 minutes a night as your third pair. Like Ryan Suter's like still a great defenseman. I know he's up there in age, but dude's a terrific defenseman still.
Yeah, like I think like Edmonton, they're just at this rate, they're especially 5-on-5, they're trying not to lose, and that they're not doing enough, in my opinion, with the other parts of the lineup to really make a dent in the Stars.
Yeah. Also playing tonight is our guy, Easton Cowan, as his London Knights will look for their second victory over at the Memorial Cup. They won 4-0 Saturday over Drummondville. They'll play the Moose Jaw Warriors tonight. Held off the score sheet in that game against Drummondville, I might add. 4 goals for London, 0 as a result of Easton Cowan. Got 0 points, which does not happen very often from Easton Cowan. So hopefully he can have a nice little rebound game tonight against Moose Jaw. I'll tell you what, here's my quick scouting report that I had on Easton Cowan. Something that got me quite excited watching him. This guy is a menace in the defensive end. Like this dude legitimately is so like he's so smothering and irritating. Like he is all over you, and he is so like he just stick checks the hell out of you. Like I was watching one play, he literally had a strip and a strip takeaway off of a guy along a wall, and then he also had 2 stick checks that caused turnovers in the defensive end as well. So kind of 3 turnovers that he forced in one play, just like on one shift there.
Crazy.
The one I'll say that. So that's the positive is his relentlessness in the defensive end when it comes to defending and causing turnovers and just being disruptive, very disruptive in his own end. I see the size concerns. I do see the size concerns because a couple of times when he would force those turnovers, he would get the puck very quickly, get knocked off his skates and knocked off the puck by someone who was, a little bigger bodied than Easton Cowan. So he definitely does need to get stronger on his skates in order, in my opinion, to translate this over to the NHL and be like a bona fide two-way guy. But I think he could be an effective bottom 6 player and penalty killer just with the sheer I don't know what's the word I'm looking for here. Just like the activeness in the D zone, the way he closes quickly, the way that he's got his stick everywhere. Disruptiveness is the word I was looking for. He's a real disruptor in the defensive end, which I think is solely needed for the Maple Leafs, especially on the penalty kill. Did you want to offer a quick comment on Cowan or anything tonight?
I'll say about the size thing. Yeah, it's obviously concerning, but he's also young. He's got time to kind of figure that out in terms of how he's going to
for sure.
use his body in against bigger players. And like I think he got a taste of that when he was up here at the NHL camp. He knows what he's going to have to work on. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see how the tournament progresses. He's obviously going up against the best competition in juniors right now, so it's a little bit of a different stage for him. Let's see if he can kind of, again, I think it's good that he's doing other things to make the team successful. Even if he's not scoring, he can find other ways to do what he needs to do. So
that's right.
It's a good sign if you're a Leafs fan there.
Yeah, absolutely. So he'll be back in action again tonight as they take on the Moose Jaw Warriors. Actually, I think it's an afternoon. 7:30 tonight on TSN. So you can roll right from that. Watch maybe the first period, then you'll flip over, watch Dallas Edmonton. Should be a good night of hockey watching if you guys want to. But that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms. and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on X at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back for another episode for you guys tomorrow. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.